good to start this post-lunch session. Post-lunch sessions are always challenging, and our session is how IoT allows for supply chain visibility to cast a caring eye on your package. What do you say? I mean, after lunch, actually opening the eye itself is a challenge. So keeping an eye on the package.
Let me begin with IoT as a topic. So when we talk about IoT in a very broad language, talking about lots of network devices connected to each other, providing data and sharing information across the platform. I come from an industry from HID, wherein we manufacture RFID tags. So we make people and assets, those things, as a part of IoT, and then we support your activities. So yeah, that's where we are.
So IoT, I mean, of course, there are a number of views in the market that how big the industry is, how well it is growing and everything. But everybody knows it is growing very well. I think that is the bottom line. Whenever any industry grows, be it telecom a few decades back, be it, the petroleum products or plastic products in the decades before that, be it the IoT today, there are always consultants' views about this. But invariably, the numbers are too large, too tough to follow. In IoT, it is said that IoT in logistics space alone is going to be about just short of $100 billion by 2028, which is the spitting distance from where we sit today. $100 billion, to put things in perspective, it is the entire India-China trade counted both ways as on date. $100 billion is the size of the entire Indian IT industry. This is almost 3 times the size of the entire huge pharmaceutical industry of India. So one way or another, we look at it, it's a massive space. When the spaces are that big, growing that fast, it is supposed to be growing at about 14-15% a year. It throws up a lot of opportunity. And that's probably the reason that it is a talking flavor in conferences today. And the 3 practitioners we have today on the panel are in the thick of the action. This is what they are, doing, implementing day on day. This is what they are. They are basically building the industry, right? So this panel is about unraveling a bit of, the mystery, the action which is going on, and listening from each of these practitioners. And the panel is very well balanced that way. So while Anil is, represents the logistics sector as the president of Safexpress. So that's a large logistics company. Mr. Iyer, on my right, he is the, he's a JBM Group. He's a group CIO of JBM Group, which is into manufacturing. And so that is the IoT in manufacturing, IoT in logistics. And the interesting person on my left, Vijay, is the one who is providing this IoT. So logistics, manufacturing, and the provider of technology, we have all, 3 ends of this triangle, right, of this panel. So to begin with, Mr. Iyer, let me hand over to you that give us a perspective, okay, that how you are seeing IoT in the, in your operations, right? And what have you seen in the recent past, that how it has grown, and what do you see going forward? It'd be great to have your views on that.
Yeah, namaste. Thanks for the opportunity. Let us put the IoT into 2 different baskets. Number one is core manufacturing within the factory. The other one is we are going to talk about how IoT is going to helpful in increasing the efficiency of the supply chain. There are 2 aspects into it. IoT is not new to manufacturing, specifically in auto. Why? Because we deployed many solutions, more than 20-25 years we are using. But what is more important is how it is bringing in value addition to the customer or to the end user. The scope has been increased so that people are in a position to embrace the technology so that they can take. Well, let us illustrate with the example. In the EV industry, if you look into, we are into EV manufacturing, bus we are manufacturing. The bus has the capability of talking about itself, and then it says this is the position today I am at this particular time. It constantly sends information. Whether you are consuming or not, it has got no relation to that. It will talk about engine status. It talks about tire. It talks about its status. And those people who are in a position to collect and then put intelligence over that, we are in a position to take the preventive action before it fails. This is one kind of scenario. The another kind of scenario is because we are into bus operations, where in the Navi Mumbai, if you see all the buses which are running is ours. Starting from allocating the route, collecting the fares, and then measuring the performance of the driver to the engine, to the route optimization. Online, we get information, and then we are in a position to instruct the driver or whoever is supposed to bring that error correction done has been informed. So to start with, IoT is not new, number one. The usage has increased. The cost of deploying a solution is also practically possible. With that, I will stop it now. We will take it later.
So, Anil, logistics is said to be one of the biggest consumers of IoT. And the way the economy is growing and everything, the logistics companies are the best ones. Their fleets keep growing. They are floating in work and wealth. So you must be having a good perspective on how IoT is changing your space, your industry, your company. Please share with us.
Thank you. First of all, let me apprise you of this fact, a little known fact about IoT, that logistics incidentally was one of the first industries to have implemented IoT well ahead of most industries. Specifically, when you hear one or the other logistics player tell you about something called GPS, we were one of the earliest as a trade to have used the first mechanism of IoT, for the first facet of IoT within the larger domain. But having said that, this has now expanded into various other sectors also, whether it is warehousing, whether it is transportation per se purely, and most importantly, off late, as Vijay also mentioned something about RFID tagging. So you see, IoT is something which is now ingrained completely in the end-to-end supply chain management when it comes to logistics services. As far as the organization per se, Safexpress is concerned, we are one of the very early proponents of IoT at the package tracking level. So any client who seeks to have visibility of their inventory finds our IoT backend playing all through. That's the Safexpress side. But as far as the industry is concerned, a lot of action is happening on not only asset tracking, but also in terms of the piece level inventory tracking. So that is where costs is a small element which is still to be figured out. But yes, that's where the meat of the action is now coming forward.
So Vijay, as the provider of all these RFID tags, right, you must be shipping billions.
I wish I would be shipping in billions actually, or selling in billions. Well, when we look at IoT from a perspective, I would call it as a change of generation from a mere track and trace perspective of RFID to a more featured product that would not only do a mere track and trace, provide you locations, how many products, but do much more. That's building on sensors into existing RFID tags, be it active or be it passive. Building in sensors would mean you could be able to monitor temperature, humidity, moisture, vibration, distance. Now, giving you small examples of it would be monitoring of vaccination vials in a cold supply chain environment using a temperature sensing passive RFID tag. So it could give you a history or a pedigree of the vial from the day it is manufactured to the time it is dispensed to a patient. So that would be an IoT example, best IoT example. The second would be in terms of tracking people, for example, monitoring social distancing or contact tracing for people moving around, especially in events like these, or for example, tracking of patient movement and doing contact tracing during epidemics in a hospital or in a healthcare sector. RFID tags in the IoT industry would be used in a couple of applications. Some of them that I can really think about is a smart city, for example, using it for environment or for public safety for citizens. It could be used in healthcare for pharmaceutical and again hospitals. Could be used for assisted living where data of a person can be collected. Could be used by insurance companies. Could be used in retail for inventory management and replenishment of stock. Could be used in transportation, again, where Anil mentioned about logistics and supply chain. Could be used in the energy sector, where you have mining, oil and gas, and also into the utility segments like, gas, electricity. One short example would be smart meters for gas and for electricity. Could be used for defense and for public safety, especially monitoring defense equipment.
Let me bring your attention to the particular use case of RFID in the logistics space or in supply chain space. So given that the growth which is happening in manufacturing and in the whole sector, what kind of the usages, where you see the biggest demand coming in the supply chain segment?
Okay, I would look at supply chain both from a manufacturing perspective and from a distribution perspective. From a manufacturing perspective, I would look at work in progress as a very big challenge for a lot of companies to manage not only the equipments or the assets that are being under manufacturing process, but also to track people in different work processes. Simple example could be monitoring Kanban, for example, or just-in-time processes in your environment. Secondly, when I talk about distribution, I'm talking about distribution across the supply chain, wherein you have warehouses, mother warehouses, retailer warehouses, and delivery to an end customer. So the entire cycle of assets and people would require tracking and tracing. And that's where RFID as a technology would play a very important and significant role in providing this information to these various devices, which will be connected over a network for your IoT.
But you see that as the technology enthusiast, as a technology company, of course, you have, you can actually tell the market a lot about that where all it can be used. Do you see your customers playing ball? Do you see they share your enthusiasm, the demand coming like that?
Okay, I would determine customers into two categories. One is somebody who's a buyer, and one is somebody actually who's a user. So when I look at it from a buyer's perspective, we would often look at cost of a tag vis-a-vis cost of, for example, a bottle of this. I wouldn't say RFID to be used on a bottle of water because there are barcodes and there are other technologies that can be used. Okay? That's not a use case. I would talk about technology to be used in very complex environments. For example, vaccination vials, which I gave you an example. Contact tracing, again, it can save lives. I'm talking about a heavy equipment or a machinery, which is expensive, a camera, a mobile phone, an oil and gas environment. So there are specific industries who actually feel the challenge of not being able to use technology because they are still using traditionally old practices and using technology only partially. So these are customers who are coming to us and to a lot of other RFID companies as well, okay, asking them for solutions. So I definitely see a huge demand in people coming up with a lot of challenges. Now, how far has this materialized in a document signing or a contract? depends upon a lot of factors, depends upon the challenges, pricing, and so on and so forth.
Right. So basically, in the refined words, you're saying that while the users are very excited about it, the customers are always stingy.
Yep.
Yeah. So the customer, Iyer sir, there's a charge on you. How do you respond to that?
See, the biggest advantage is how we are going to resolve the business issues. That is the baseline for if IoT is going to give a solution. For example, if you are going to automate the Weighbridge solution, what is the advantage of doing that? Because using RFID, we have done the Weighbridge automation, which has eliminated the human requirement. Otherwise, one person was operating that particular Weighbridge using RFID and camera and a related solution. We were in a position to convert and eliminate the manpower requirement at that particular workstation. That's number one. Number two, how it is going to increase the confidence of the business, the customer or the person. If you are selling a scrap, for example, when we say because of automated process, the weighing happens by system, and the end user also directly, the business process which he was earlier adapting, weighing it again, that got eliminated because the B2C, because we are also selling to another company, because they built a relation that, okay, they have faith in their system, which has eliminated the pilferage, number one. It means from JBM, any goods coming out cannot have an incorrect weighing. That is number one. Number two, if you are trying to see the EV bus operations, we have to take a corrective action as and when it happens. This also means the visibility of the vehicle on the road as compared to the destination, how much time it is going to take, how we are going to bring in corrections in rerouting the bus which is on the road, and then online we connect and then ensure that they are getting the corrective actions, and then we are trying to reduce the time delay. And if you see within manufacturing system, for example, what happens when you are operating any machines, with the help of IoT, we are in a position to identify X, Y, and Z axis movement. If it goes beyond the standard, any deviation which has been found, because we are constantly collecting data from the machine movement, all the three axes we are collecting, when it goes beyond that a level, system stops or it gives indication to the person who is supposed to take corrective actions. So these are all the three use cases using which we can reduce the downtime, number one. And before it goes off, the machine goes off, we are in a position to plan it right, maybe in between shifts or maybe during Sundays, we can bring that corrective action take place.
Yeah, that's an interesting example that you have taken. It's about, troubleshooting or preventive maintenance, or actually the breakdown maintenance. But given that, you are the bulk of your revenue of JBM Group comes from manufacturing, and you are the suppliers to the automotive company, Maruti being the biggest, and I'm sure several others. The tracking and tracing, okay, of the deliveries that you do to your clients, right? How far have you been able to leverage IoT in that particular use case?
Okay, very interesting question, but purposefully I did not touch on that. I am going to take 2 more minutes to make it more meaningful. What is required is visibility. What visibility is all about. If customer says this good which has been delivered is not up to the standard, for example, rejection comes, how quickly we are in a position to identify who has supplied the raw material for us to manufacture and what did I manufactured it and in what shift I have manufactured, so that with one sample of rejection, I am in a position to identify the batch, number one. Number two, how quickly I'm going to bring in corrections so that I am responding to the customer in a larger perspective. So this is one of the use case. This is number one. Number two, because of this visibility, we have some barcode system, some RFID systems, etc., etc. When you are trying to bring in automation for a purpose, you get some byproducts. For example, if you are having a warehouse, for example, we deal more on steel. Steel rolls, if you see, it will be in tons, 10 tons, 20 tons, 15 tons. And it is in the yard. Manually, when we were trying to do physical inventory, it takes normally 2 days. With the intervention of IoT, it reduced to less than 6 hours. Okay. But it was not for that purpose. The automation was done to bring the visibility. The IoT solutions, barcode, the different solutions has helped us knocking out the another business problem, which is very crucial for us, because we know this product is this particular item which is available in that particular warehouse is not used for 6 months. That we come to know 1.5 days much quicker than that. So many other byproducts also will come into effect when you try to do that.
Great, that's wonderful. Yeah, and going on similar lines, Anil, you run a large logistics network, thousands of vehicles, the road, supplying all different kind of things, and a lot of customers. How far it is possible today to track a particular package which is on the road, right? And mind you, please, for the audience sake, I'm putting the question in the particular perspective that most of the logistics company, much of their fleet is not their own. They rely on third parties. To a certain extent, this could be dedicated fleet, or it could be, could be a short-term contract, whatever. But there seems to be an interface where a handoff is there with your logistics provider, and it is only a function of systems to IoT-driven systems probably, which can enable a seamless tracking of the package, right? What has been your experience in that, and what have been the developments?
Before I take that answer, Vaibhavji, let me come back to one point which Vijay was mentioning. Specifically, let's understand IoT a little differently also. Tools like RFID tag, tools like GPS, tools like the visibility equipment are all tools to provide you that visibility. IoT does not do that. IoT is what you do on that visibility, what IoT would do. It's not necessarily what that tool is going to do. An RFID tag, passive or active tag, would provide you with that information, or you can feed that information on it. But that doesn't do enough. Eventually, what do you do with that information? What is your algorithm beyond the process that triggers based on that information is what IoT would do. Now, coming to the example that you mentioned about a logistics company, I could dive inside Safexpress's example to give you an angle. So, for a good 20 plus years, we've been in the business of ensuring that every of our fleet is completely GPS enabled. So that provides us with visibility. All right. Now, what do we do with that visibility? I know where the truck is. That doesn't mean you as a client are aware where your package is or where your consignment is. So now what do I do with that visibility would be one element of the IoT that you're talking about. So what at Safex, what we've done is we've integrated the consignments that we pick to the package level visibility within our hubs or warehouses, whatever you may call them. And then finally on the trucks. So should you actually go on a Safexpress's website, you will be able to tab in, a Weibull number or a consignment note number, and the system will automatically track where the truck is, which carried that package and which basically constitute that Weibull, and hence you will be able to track. But then that's not the IoT. The IoT of our operation is a couple of notches ahead of that. And which is, should there be a deviation in that tracking, then I intimate you as a customer saying, okay, this is when your consignment is going to reach instead of the earlier time or faster or later, whatever.
That is the action based on the IoT output.
On the information
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
processed through the system, and that's what it
Right,
does.
right.
And that further is integrated through EDI or through API to client systems, which they use to reprocess their further downstream ordering or downstream production in the case of, a manufacturing unit and so on and so forth. So the utilization of that input and
Let me hold your
transparency-
attention. You mentioned an interesting point about trucks going, certain things happening and keeping the customers informed. But I'm picking up the earlier part of it, which is actually, as customers regularly face, that for some reason the truck is not reaching, the truck has gone here, there, whatever, right? Route deviation and things like that. After all, there is a lot of human dependence, right, with the drivers and all that, and we know how, despite being very hard-working segment, how it can be. Have you been using, from a technology perspective, to mitigate those challenges? Have you been using technologies like geofencing for your vehicles while it is on a certain route to, inculcate more discipline into your delivery execution?
For a moment, let me wear the hat of a transporter, represent the industry for a moment. And I'll tell you, we transporters have been given the credit of coming up with the wackiest of excuses, from flat tires to river overflows to buns to jams, and you can think of whatever. The number of the punctures that we've created could actually create an industry in themselves. So if you put that all in perspective, over the last decade or two, the distance from where we've traveled, in those days when only telephonically you could actually track these things. Now, post GPS, post information being on free flow and so on and so forth, these things are all dated now. Transparency is paramount. Information is freely available. Now, SIM-based tracking has come in. Vehicle monitoring systems are already there. So these are all dated now. Should an organization transparently work, progressively to provide that information, these things are now par for course as far as a conventional trucker is concerned. Whether that unit, that asset is owned by the organization or outsourced is now inconsequential, because you could actually track it in a variety of various other manners. Once again, the objective is not necessarily to simply get that transparency, is what you do with that transparency that
Of
matters.
course, it is like anything that, the data that you generate, data may be the bedrock, may be the oil, but what you do with that data, right? It is the same perspective. But, talking about I would like to further pick on the point about, while keeping an eye on the clock, the point about geofencing, the new developments, like geofencing, like, even drone delivery, which is basically a delivery method, largely IoT driven. So let me ask Mr.
Sorry, I'll just add to that point what you just mentioned about geofencing. Since you mentioned that to me, I'll just respond. So then I'll let Mr. Iyer add to it. Today, geofencing has come to a stage where not only the transshipment yards, wherever we transship, wherever all the hubs, wherever we cross dock materials are geofenced, but also client sites, and because of the easy availability of GPS-based tools, this is all available and possible. The IoT factor of that is, as soon as there is a deviation from a certain predetermined route. That is a factor of IoT that we were talking about. So as soon as, let's say if you're going to go Delhi to Mumbai, an entire geofenced route tells the system, okay, this is the geofenced route on which your truck should be going. And should that trackable truck deviates more than an X number of kilometers, a trigger or an escalation, kind of beeps up. And that's what a part of IoT within the logistics trade or the transport trade actually functions. I'm sorry.
Yes, in your case, your neighborhood delivery, which I understand should be the bulk of your deliveries, 80 to 90%. Your long distance, outside the plant could be a little lesser. The trackability, right? The geofencing, etc. So certain delivery, which is, let's say, intended for Maruti, which is located in the same premises as you, or you are located in the same premises as Maruti, versus one which is going to Honda, which is outside the plant. Are you using technologies like geofencing to differentiate that shouldn't go out what is supposed to be confined in?
Let us first talk about what is happening within plant. That is more meaningful because many do not know. We normally deliver based on JIT basis. JIT means in 20 minutes time, every 2 hours, I have to supply to Maruti or X customer. So it is very clear that I have to meet the deadline on time. Otherwise, my truck, despite completing the manufacturing process, I cannot deliver it to the customer. So what is very important, ANPR based, automatic number plate recognition based integration will help us reducing the timeline to cross our factory to customer's factory. These are the certain small image based analysis we do, and then this is the vehicle which is allowed to come inside or allowed to go outside. So there is no time wastage as far vehicle movement is concerned. It is very clear. If it is going to a wrong gate, it will not open. It is going to the right gate, it will open. It is another way of doing a geofencing. A geofencing, for that we need GPS. But
similar thing,
but we do it in a different way because our route is fixed. Because most of the things are happening within plants, and the important thing is supplier truck is coming or a truck, anything coming inside, it should go within this many timeline. It has to go out. If it is not happening, it gets a trigger. So truck turnaround time is one of the very important factor for supply chain efficiency, which increases because we don't want to, we are responsible if any mishap happens within our factory for supplier truck also. So the chances of, so within plant is more crucial. Outside plant, we have many solutions available, which we are.
That's an interesting point you flagged actually, because, I remember sometime back, 15, 20 years back, the tracking of trucks, right? And given where they're going versus where they're supposed to go, that used to be a very challenging area. And it's good to know the way you have highlighted that how it is being mitigated by a combination of technology and process today to achieve much more efficiency in that. Well, the clock is ticking way too fast as it looks from here. But let me conclude with you, Vijay. Given that you are the technology provider and in the whole IoT-driven supply chain space, one very exciting development which is happening is drone delivery. Now, while these at one level are the fanciful stories, but on the real level, there are things happening. There is a company called Iyer. They claim that they have already done more than 2,000 drone delivery flights. Have you come across such interesting cases? Tell us only the interesting ones and less than a minute.
I'll do a quick story about, not the story, just give you a small gist about, I wouldn't say about drone delivery, but about using drones as tracking. So one of our use cases in the Middle East is for an oil and gas customer. They have very large yards, actually. These yards could be as much as 20 square kilometers or perhaps even more. These yards house pipes that are used for rigging processes, for oil and drilling processes. Now, pipes could be of different sizes and dimensions and spread over this large, vast area. Previously, using traditional methods, they used to deploy people who could, for example, if I want to find a particular pipe with a particular dimension and a particular material, I would deploy people who were called as runners. Okay, that was the term that they used in the Middle East for people who could run around and tell you the location of these. But it would still take them 2 to 3 days to identify where that particular pipe was lying. So here was a case where they deployed drones with RFID readers mounted onto it, and each and every pipe had an RFID tag. And every day, twice, in the morning and during the evening shifts, they used to take a stock inventory and identify the location of those assets that are lying, which brought down the time. The downtime was reduced from 2 or 3 days to something like a few seconds for them, because all that they wanted to do now is to register into the system, this is the pipe and this is the dimensions and this is the supplier. And they would exactly know the location where it is lying.
That's really interesting. That's really wonderful. You're going where you could not reach before, right? With the drone. So while the discussion is wonderful, but we are completely out of time. If there are one or two audience questions, we should be able to take. I see a hand going up. Yes, please. In case you don't have a voice, you can try using your loud voice.
Well, I certainly believe we do have time for a quick question.
Hi, my name is Amrendra Kumar. I'm representing Roadcast. My question to Anil ji, so far we are discussing about IoT, but I'm take you to the new paradigm shift, which is telematics. So want to understand that fleet owners like you, or whether you have been outsourced, and if you look at internationally what is happening in Mercedes-Benz or Scania or even Volvo, why not we can adopt this, that okay, it's a real-time practice which is essential, not as a cosmetic solution?
I tell you, brother, this is not a cosmetic solution. It's very much an accurate operation that we do. If I was to talk on behalf of the logistics sector, I'm not really sure how that can be a cosmetic solution. But nonetheless, if your interest is to know as to how exactly telematics in this nature works, we as an organization, each organization may have different way of using telematics as a deployed tool. In our case, logistics basically, is providing a slightly, what should I say, a tail end of the solution. As Vijay also mentioned, we can actually, to a level, only provide a fix to a larger vision that an organization or the principal will have. So you mentioned a couple of names. So in this case, since Mr. Iyer is on the panel, if JBM decides to have a certain solution for their IoT, end-to-end IoT solution, organizations of the logistics world would simply be a fix within that solution. The ultimate utilization of IoT would be JBMs in this case. Independently, a logistics company would do very little of an end-to-end IoT solution because they're not the end user; they're the service providers of.
I hope that answers comprehensively, and thank you, everybody. I think we will take rest of the questions offline. We're completely out of time, so thank you very much.